Paris.
You should be live audio.
Thursday night in London.
Ah, well, that's not bad.
Not bad.
Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today we gather with the intent followed by our living peace and friendship treaties. With respect, cooperation, and coexistence, we are all treated people. I call this meeting of Town Council for June 26, 2025 to order. And I will begin by accepting the approval of the agenda or amendments. Councillor Carver.
Your worship, I have an addition to the agenda for council items, I believe, and it's something that I thought we could vote on tonight.
Okay.
And it's a application from the South Shore Summer Theatre for grant, which somehow got lost in the shuffle in March. So I'd like that added to the agenda. I believe that would go on your council items.
8.4.
And then to add to the closed session, an item for regarding litigation or potential litigation.
Thank you. Any other additions? No, then will someone make a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Copeland, second by Councillor Cornell. Thank you. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the acceptance of the minutes of the regular council meeting, June 10th, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions? Being none.
Very moved that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney, and a second by Councillor Wilson. Thank you. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Announcements by council members. Are there any, Councillor Penny Farber.
I just want to say that we've been having a series of meetings called Edgewater Project Landscape Consultations. And it's because people were concerned about what the project would look like from a beauty point of view, what the vegetation would look like, and so on. So it's turned out that there have been suggestions other than just landscaping, but appearance and accessibility and so on. So it's been a really, really creative and positive series of meetings. I hope that we've covered a lot of bases in terms of how things are going to look and how they're going to function.
I received an email about that today and it was very positive. First, Councillor Copeland and then Dan.
Would we get some feedback on that so council's aware of what is being discussed?
Perhaps you could check with staff.
Anticipating that, I was going to hand it up because I figured that was going to be a question, and I'm happy to add to that. So essentially, this process was to define a proposed change order and scope of work, which CBCI will write up, and then like all the other change orders we've been reviewing, we'll review that at council. So wouldn't actually be finalized until it's come to council. And if there are elements that have costs involved, obviously the landscaping group hasn't really been contemplating that. So council will have the final say. I don't think a lot of it is costly. The one significant change that was recommended that will probably have a bit more cost to it is to add a couple of additional lookout bump outs along the trail with seating because of the relative frequency of benches. And there was a feeling that there could be more. So those will be priced, and council will see that that probably will cost more than tiny changes to curbs and things like that. But yeah, we'll all come to council. This is just provided with the CBCL side of thing.
Anything else? Councillor Copeland, you.
I was going to bring this up later, but it's a difficult subject because a number of questions were asked ahead of following the Edgewater public meeting, which have not been addressed, some which dealt with a number of issues. Those number of issues deal with the ambience of the trail and the flood protection of the trail. As to the former, we're repeatedly told that nothing could be expanded out any further because of the ocean pool wouldn't bear it. And yet we are already planning and have to plan for infill, which according to the report would sink into the bottom and not be supported. Then the flood
This isn't
protection.
really announcements. Can you save that?
Yeah. Well, yes, I can. That's why I said I was
think,
going to bring this
that's
up
a-
later. It's
Right. That's a later
okay,
conversation.
fine.
Okay, so are there any other?
Yeah, I just want to thank you. I just wanted to add, that I should have included the fact that the landscape consultation group included representatives from many different organizations around in the town. So it was quite a rich input and pretty creative, I thought, as a municipal process.
Mhm. Well, I'd like to add that this is the busyness of summer and events are happening, and the Fairy Trails official opening is
Yeah.
Tuesday at 2 o'clock. The museum is going to have children's programming every Saturday afternoon. I think it's at 2 o'clock throughout the summer. That's an absolute big bonus to our community and new. We have a breakfast at the Legion on Sunday and announcements coming for the bandstand in Edgewater Street. Or funding announcements, I should say. One is Thursday evening and one is on Friday. And also, those of you who know Christian Heritage, he's really doing well. He's been out and about a little bit. He had a birthday this week and he went out for ice cream and a drive, and his parents had their anniversary. So he's showing signs of progress, and which is a really good sign. Councilor Wilson?
I just wanted to check a date. You said that the Fairy Trail opening was on Tuesday?
No, this coming Friday, Saturday,
That's
at
right.
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Saturday,
That's what,
yes.
Followed by a tea
A
at
tea at
Eli and Tricks.
Yeah.
And isn't there also a fundraiser barbecue for the
Yes,
Three
we Churches
churches.
Foundation and the festival, that's
That's
the
on-
golf box on Saturday. I'm gonna be hauling strawberries tomorrow afternoon for that.
Mhm.
So it's summer and on Monday, being what we call grading day, there's a pool party. And the official opening of the pool, so lots of activities in our best
Good.
town in Canada, Councillor Kingsmill. So anyway, lots of people will enjoy the festivities and take part in as many of these activities as they can. Anything else? No? Okay, we will move on to the public input session. Is there anyone here to give public input? Can you come forward and give your name and your civic address?
Hello, my name is Tammy Turner and my husband and I live at 228 Hawthorne Road. We are here this evening to highlight an agenda item regarding Hawthorne Hill. During the public input session of the last council meeting on June 10th, a presentation was made by Mr. Pavlinick requesting the amendment to the land use bylaw for our Hawthorne community to be delayed due to a concern raised by the area's current developer regarding building setbacks. Specifically, the request was to refer the amendment from residential general to residential unserviced back to the Planning and Advisory Committee. Ultimately, this request would have resulted in a lengthy delay and possible additional costs of time and monies to council and staff. It would also put our area at risk for multi-unit development. During this discussion by council, some councillors queried if this request was the feeling of one individual or of the community of Hawthorne Hill. The following week, members of our community went door to door or emailed residents to confirm their continuing support for the rezoning. The results can be found in your meetings package with overwhelming support and signatures of approval for the rezoning to residential unserviced. Hence, we would request that a motion not be made by council to refer this back to the PAC, and that a motion be made to rezone Hawthorne Hill from residential general to residential unserviced. By doing so, council will demonstrate support for the Hawthorne community, prioritizing lower densification that would help to protect our wells and mitigate straining the water table and infrastructure that is in place. We respect the time and expense that council and the town staff have taken during this long process this year to consider this bylaw application. And it is our hope that the rezoning of Hawthorne Road to residential unserviced can take place promptly at tonight's council meeting. Thank you.
Are there any presentations? No? Okay. We will move on to presentations. 5.1, Chief Adam Atkins, I think just whizzed by in the fire vehicle. But he has tabled his statistics and quarterly report already, and it was in the package. And also our CAO can ask questions should anyone have any.
Mayor, just in reviewing the package and in the chief's absence, I move that we accept his report for information.
Second by Councillor Wilson. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Beanie and Wilson, you seem like a team tonight.
Huh.
Making motions and so. Thank you. Correspondences, item 6, and we'll go to 6.1. The Honorable Dave Ritzie, Communities, Culture and Tourism and Heritage Minister, response to Warden Weber, Social Public Libraries funding. That was in your package. Are there any questions about that? No. 6.2, George Anderson, Driftwood Monster relocation. That was also in your package. Any discussion on that? Councillor Wilson.
Just to say that these things are proliferating in the park, and it's the one that's there now is, or at least it was in its original location, potentially a bit dangerous for kids. And I'm not sure, I don't know what the second one is gonna look like, but I'm kind of wondering, when does this end?
Yeah.
Just, I guess, adding to that comment, there was originally a request for another one, which was to go on the end of the bridge in the park. And the framing there was actually just meant to be part of the construction. It was going to be removed. There wasn't going to be an arch at that end. And it was a request by the chamber that be left up so that they could put, like, I guess, an aerial monster, which has never arrived. So, on one hand, we left that up, which was not meant to be up. And on the other hand, I'm not sure if there's another one still to come. So just wanted to add that there could be quite a proliferation of monsters, I guess, if that was true as well.
Yes. Is there any other discussion about that? Councillor Carver.
I resonate to Councillor Wilson's concerns in terms of the ongoing nature of it, and what are the parameters? What's the town's responsibility for these items? They're very, very interesting, but it's a very loose relationship, and I can't quite figure out who has decision-making capacity in this situation.
Councillor Feeney.
So kind of that spirit of embracing the passions of the community. We had a conversation with Christopher Quigley about interpretive art, and this is art that's kind of been derived from the community. I think all we're really doing is we're giving it a home for a while. And as I understand from the letter and the correspondence, like the responsibility for its placement and it's being taken down in the wintertime is not a town responsibility. They're simply looking for permission to display the art on public land, and public property. So I think we should kind of get used to this, maybe on more of a rotating basis. And I do think that we should make sure that if we are going to have public art installations, they should be in a place that people go, and they should be in a place where the art can be seen. So I mean, if the artists and the people who are closest to it think that the park is the place to go, I'm going to defer to their view on this. This is I think relatively a net positive, I would think.
There's one piece there already from the lawn monsters. Is there, Councillor Carter?
I think if this goes to a motion, I would like to see it include a statement that the town staff will monitor it for safety and mainly for safety and deterioration.
Okay, would you like to speak to that? Steve?
Yes, if we're going to do that, which I think is a fine idea, it should be clear that if there is any of that deterioration or safety considerations, we'll be ordering the removal of it by these requesting parties.
Yeah.
We're not maintaining it, and that was never
Right,
agreed with the existing.
Fair.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion? Okay, Councillor Holcomb.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of George Anderson, who also is willing to support and finance aspects of this particular feature, if you will.
Okay, and with the tag on with the public works?
With the understanding that Public Works will be keeping an eye on it in terms of safety.
Okay. And maybe
And
remove,
requesting removal.
That's, I would think, would just follow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we weren't even gonna second it. The way Brian phrased it, I think he was saying that George has offered to maintain it, et cetera.
Yes, yeah.
And so if that's in the motion, then I guess that would cover that off.
Yes.
right,
Make it a little harder for Eric, but I think that's what
is
you meant.
there a second for the motion?
recordings.
And would you like that on or?
I'll second.
And Councillor Carver seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we're gonna call for the question. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. One nay. Okay, the motion, I don't have my screen up, Councillor Kingsmill. I do not see you, so I can't even see if you voted.
Sure.
Did he vote?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
I voted yes. Yep.
Okay, I have my agenda up on it and I
Okay.
cannot see you.
I will be vocal.
Okay,
from
I
now
just,
on.
yeah, please do. All right, thank you. The
Problem.
motion is carried. Going forward, we're going on to item 6.3. Mary Lee Roth, support of rezoning for Hawthorne Road area. We have the letter from our presenter here and her husband, support for rezoning of Hawthorne Road, that's 6.4. 6.5 is Pat Smith, support for rezoning on Hawthorne Road. And 6.6, Hawthorne Road residents request to rezone Hawthorne Road area. So, any more conversation about this? What, Councillor Wilson?
I make a motion that all of 6.1 through 6.6 we received and filed.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second for that motion? Councillor Carver, second that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. And we're moving on to staff reports. 7.1, staff report to council, June 26th. So you all have that in your package. There's a couple of highlights there that are complete. Yay, thank you, staff, for your hard work. And there are some there that I noticed are like 90% and 75%, so things are moving along. And we're coming to an end with some of these items. Yes, Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, just before we get to questions, I will move that we accept the staff report for information.
We'll see that. Is there a second? Or Councillor Twana?
Might be some questions.
Yes. Are there any questions about these staff reports? Councillor Freeman?
Well, I guess I finally got the right slot.
Yeah.
No, it's a difficult subject because the new councillors came in after this was all negotiated and agreed. Information flowing from there since that date has been quite limited. In fact, we shared the information at the Edgewater Street public meeting, from which flowed a number of questions from the public which have not been answered. And I've tried to get to the bottom of some of these questions, and it's not particularly easy. The report is obviously prepared from an engineering point of view, but there's also an ambience aspect to what is being, I guess, put in place. And that is being looked at by the landscaping committee, which we've yet to get a report back from in terms of what they think, on top of what the public think. And we don't know, and I don't know. So there are two aspects to it. One is that there is a very narrow 1 meter separation between the highway and the trail. And the reason for that is because there's a problem apparently with further infill that would support a wider separation between road and trail. And yet, infill is already planned for aspects, also certain sections, because it has to be, because the road is simply not wide enough to bear 1 meter plus 3 meters of trail. So we are getting infill. The question is, and we have infill at both ends of the trail through the church parking lots and the Keddes Landing end of it. So the question is, why is it okay to have infill for that, but not infill for literally 4 or 5 feet more to create a greater separation? The reason for the separation from an ambience point of view is that we have the public within 3 feet, 1 meter of traffic, noise, exhaust fumes, and so on and so forth. So this question is one of those ones that seems unanswerable at the moment. Is it, if it's okay to infill at one point, why is it not? And then we talked this morning about, this evening, about further benches being, which requires more infill on the water side. Again, it comes back to the same question. The second part of it is, what are we achieving in the way of flood protection through this mechanism? Now, I've looked at it, and on the plans themselves, 3 meters, which is the flood expectation under category 2 hurricane, is measured from almost the low water mark. But on pursuing it, that isn't the measurement it's taken from. There's another measurement. And beyond that, it gets into the, what are the odds of this happening? 1 in however many hundreds or thousands or whatever it is over the next 30 years. But of course, obviously, hurricanes don't arrive just according to statistics. They arrive when they arrive, and that's it. The follow through to that is that if the flood protection is not adequate for a reasonably significant hurricane, which is 3 meters, how do we sell this to the people on Main Street on their private property, which is the second part of protecting the town from flooding? And unless we have a fairly solid rationale and numbers in terms of what level of protection we are seeing, which would simply be a matter of, we know where the low tide is, we know where the high tide is. Never mind all the other numbers about various levels of engineering from an engineering point of view. But in very simple terms, if you get a 3 meter surge off a standard low tide here, not an extreme low tide, and same measurement of a high tide, what is the level of protection? When are we topping over what we have, which is 2.4 meters over something? I don't know what it's over. So just leave it at that.
Councillor Carr.
Mayor, I'm not quite sure what part of the staff report that those comments or questions were about. There is an item in the staff report about developing a one-page public document on the Edgewater Street project, but which is essentially complete. That was about the one-page information document, so I'm not clear what the comments and questions from Councillor Palfreyman were connected to the staff report.
If I could respond.
Your motion?
Pardon? Yes. Finish, are you?
No, I'm just expecting an answer.
Oh, okay.
not across the
Okay, yes, okay. I am just trying to go through and see if there is a spot here on the agenda. I think you are correct, Councillor Carver. Is there another spot where this would be in tonight's agenda?
If
Council Falconer?
If I can respond, these are the questions that the community has asked and therefore ought to form part of this report that we're talking about.
Well, I think you could have added it to, under council items, you could have added an item.
But I didn't,
Or
I did
other
it under this item, I've spoken to it. And we're talking about communication to the public about what this actually is.
Yes, but we also have a protocol and a policy on how our meetings and agendas are set.
I'm sorry, I don't follow what the difference is between what I just said and what is on the agenda item here. We're talking about a report to the public, which is what I'm talking about.
But I don't see that topic here under staff reports. To
Your worship, it's number 5.
Number 5.
It's number 5. And
That's one pager.
that was,
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
it took me a long time because there were so many details about the actual different aspects of the Edgewater project. I did not make the connection, and I did not hear the connection that it was about the information, the public information. It took a long time to get to that.
Oh, so do you want to withdraw your concern or you want to?
No, I'm not withdrawing the concern.
Okay.
It's not a motion. It was just curiosity about where those comments fit in terms of the staff report.
Can you mention that, Councillor Copeland?
Sorry, I'm lost as to why I have to explain anything. There's the development of a one-page public document on Edgewater Street project. For the public have asked questions. I've tried to get to the bottom of those questions. I have not succeeded in getting to the bottom of those questions. I've raised them now. I think they are necessary part of the report to the public.
Okay, so CAO, do you know where this document is, like how far it says here, 75% finished?
So if strictly speaking to the document, although I have had my hand up in my broader
Sure.
capacity, but to your specific question, the document is finished. It's just waiting to be sent out as part of the wider budget newsletter, and that will go tomorrow. So it
And
wasn't
does it-
actually the one pager, it was finished 12 days ago. It's just the rest of that thing, but it will all be ready tomorrow.
And do you know if that answers some of Councillor Pokemond's questions or concerns?
No, I wouldn't really say that it does. I mean, it's designed as a general information piece, but what I originally have my hand up, if you're willing, I'm happy to answer the questions. I
Oh.
actually think the fact that they're being phrased in this way in an open meeting, and then the council saying, well, you shouldn't be spoken to, makes it seem like they're not readily answerable.
Okay,
And they are, in fact, I think I've answered them as many times as Brian has asked them, but I'm happy to answer them again on camera here tonight, just to make sure everyone knows they're easily answerable questions, and we have spoken to them many times. So to the first
Okay.
question, geotechnical work, extensive geotechnical work, about $100,000 of geotechnical work with the barge was carried out to inform the project. So the exact infill that is described in the project is based on what's down there. What's down there is peat resulting from, much organic debris, sawdust, which has turned into peat over the years. And there's a precipitous drop off in terms of the stability of the surface just past the area that they've designed the infill. So they maximize the infill there. It's not impossible to go further, but Councillor Carver did ask this question at the landscaping meeting this morning, and CDCL did confirm that we're talking on the order of millions of dollars to gain the additional 1 meter. So, at council's discretion, the infill hasn't begun. We could get a change order request for this, but I will say it will be millions of dollars. And that is based on hard evidence that was collected deliberately to inform the project. We would use as much space as it was economical to do so. So, happily, the project would have included a larger verge if that was economical to do so. So, that's a prerogative. If council wants to request a change order, I certainly can get it, but that's why we haven't contemplated a larger verge. To the second question, with respect to sea levels, the CDCL document from 2016 is actually very clear on the sea level calculations. They're on page 15, 11 of the document pagination, but 15 of the PDF. And what it says there is that at high tide, the same impact experienced by Halifax during Hurricane Juan, which had direct impact, this design would be adequate for that scenario. And so if you had a scenario that was worse than the direct impact of Hurricane Juan, were it to have landed directly in Mahone Bay at high tide, then this is not large, this is not big enough. So we've talked a lot about how there is, a scenario where it gets overtopped. The shoreline design and the position of it is supposed to eliminate a low wave impact. So at that point, we're talking presumably about relatively gentle overtopping of the trail. And everything's been designed to drain back out after high tide. It's obviously not perfect. Like there's a scenario where you get 1 foot over it and it goes into the road and it drains back out. You have suggested a possible seawall on top, and that would give us, kind of the perfect protection against the gentle surge, right? If it's already even broken up. And CDCL is still working on that investigation. I will say that'll also be very expensive, but your suggestion that it be seen as something that could be done now or later gives us now room to fundraise for that. So, from my perspective, I do think these questions are addressed, but if there's follow-ups and at the appropriate time, now or later, I'm happy to speak to them.
Councillor Faulkner?
So the answer then, or since we already have infill going in within that soft bottom area, how is that possible when it's not possible 3 or 4 feet further?
So my point was that they tested where the soft bottom area was and designed based on not having to sink material in to create the bottom, so that they only went as far as where the stability dropped off. So there's no infilling in.
So I'm quite happy with that answer that tells me that it suddenly drops off. That hasn't been provided before. It's just been a blanket, no, you can't do it. And which doesn't stand up in terms of convincible.
Well, I'm sorry that you had felt that was a gap, but that is the reason, and they did do a lot of work to try to figure out if there was opportunity to go further. So I think we were thoroughly convinced by that.
Even within a few feet, so these extra projections for benches and what have you.
Oh, yes, the bench bump out. So that is dependent on CDCL being able to redesign the armoring on the same footprint. So they won't bump out the actual, final extent of the infill.
Okay.
They have to be able to fit it in by, restructuring where the armoring was at a certain location. So some locations are more suitable to that, and others it's a no-go even to do that. So that is what they're looking at now. But that's why there'll be some price involved.
Okay, so the bottom issue is more or less resolved then. The flood protection part of it is sort of resolved in that it protects up to a certain degree, but could be supplemented, for example, by reducing wave action through infilling the edge of the Inchcape Shoal or something of that order, which might be a more effective way of reducing storm damage or wave damage, shall we say. And if that's a supplemental possibility, well then, fine, good.
Which we've had discussions about.
And
the
yes,
entrance that we-
and we have exactly, yes, so that might be part of the answer.
It sounds
but-
like the most reasonable one.
It does in part, but I mean, basically, we have to have an answer that we can sell to mainstream people who are the next part of this, just how effective is what we have.
And I think we're working, oh, sorry, if you don't mind,
Sorry.
I think we're working on a piece of educational material that will help show, the different components of flooding mitigation. So this is obviously one, but yeah, it's absolutely the case that this is not the only one that's needed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are experiencing and tracking erosion on the shoreline headed out to Bader's Cove.
Yes, I know it goes
This is-
further, I know there's lots of moving pieces.
Councilor Wilson and Councilor Carter?
I sort of had my hand up, just partly in response to Councillor Palfreyman's questions about the one-page public document. It has been discussed with the Communications Committee, which is an in-house committee comprised of 3 councillors and several staff members, including the communications new staff person. So the idea was raised, discussed, and with opportunities to tweak the draft document. So several councillors have been involved with it. The Westminster, Councillor Palfreyman's comments raised the question of what kind of feedback council needs from committees and how often and in what detail. Clearly, 7 people around a table can't be on top of every item under discussion. So perhaps we could talk policy and strategy sometime about what kind of feedback council as a whole needs from the working committees.
That would be a possible item for the policy and strategy committee. Any other comments?
No, I just.
Councillor Palfreyman?
I would just say I agree, but these very large projects which are agreed over from past councils and whatnot are difficult to pick up on from new councils. When much of the discussion is held in camera, in this particular case, the Edgewater project. So knowledge of what is actually happening comes very, very late in a project which is very, very much underway. That's a problem. Because of that.
And is there any other comment on this topic?
We're on the topic of the staff report. Could be on any.
Well, and then the staff report, or item 6, what was it, sorry, 7.1. Are there any further discussion? No? Do we need a motion?
Joe's
to
motion is
accept?
still on the floor.
I think
Okay,
we're just speaking to
Yeah,
the motion
yeah.
now,
okay.
Mayor, and we can
Motion was.
just to
To
accept
accept
the
it
report
on.
at the conclusion of the questions,
Yeah,
which I think we might be there now,
yes,
but those are some good questions. Well,
and who seconded that, clerk?
Councillor Swana.
Oh,
Excellent.
okay.
Mayor, you ready for the vote?
Ready for the question? All those in favor signify aye.
Bye.
Sorry.
Now we can talk about the window blinds. Can't wait.
And we should be doing
Nay,
this at a time of.
Any nays? The
Exactly.
motion is carried. Thank
Here
you.
the lamb race.
Okay, I'm
Council
going to
agenda.
move on to item 7.2, which is the town hall window blind. You all received that, Councillor Wilson.
I'd like to move the council direct staff to purchase all new blinds for town hall at a cost of $12,000 as reflected in the attached report from Wood Valley Construction.
Okay, is there a second? Councillor Carver, second.
I just want to clarify the price that Councillor Wilson said they're $12,000, $933.30.
Less than HST, because we get that back.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, 12,000 was the requested budget, and I guess just for anybody watching, I know it does seem like a lot. It's 35 blinds in this building, it's been a large building. And unfortunately, this does seem to be the going rate for 35 appropriate blinds for an office building.
That was cheap.
Well, that's good.
The
I'm glad
old
somebody
ones
thought
were
so.
Venetian blinds, you can't get Venetian blinds.
No,
anymore.
Kelly did so much to look into options, but
And I know they were trying to get these blinds cut.
Hmm.
And
they wouldn't even do
couldn't.
that, they considered it a liability, I think they even tried.
I even offered to do it myself.
Let
me.
You off on workers' comp.
Yeah.
New window, new blind seems about right.
Yeah, is there any other discussion on the topic?
Just,
Council Paul.
just as a matter of interest, is this the final item on the town hall renewal?
I do believe so. I mean, as I will say, I was parking, I was wondering about how hard it would be to get that third floor back space opened up, but no, that is not within scope. Looks really nice up there. It looks like it would make a air bed and breakfast or something.
Council Corner.
Do all the windows need blinds?
Well, it doesn't include the two on the back on the third floor. But yeah, I think all of the ones that people are usually through.
Any good question, ready for the question? All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. Noted. Thank you. The motion is carried.
And if I could just say, we will
Yes.
spend less if you have another suggestion. The budget's been approved, but you get me some tomorrow morning that looks better. It's less than $12,000 and it's still.
Check out
doesn't show.
Team They're really good sizing.
They're coming from there anyway, probably.
Okay, moving on to, council items. 8.1, second reading of proposed zoning amendments to the MPF and LUD. So this was deferred from the 10th of June and, I will, yes, Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, this is a kind of a long and winding road all the way back to, I think last September when Emily was hosting the community and most of the neighborhood from Hawthorne Hill here in the council chambers. So I think this is probably the strongest example that I'm aware of kind of like a whole neighborhood banding together to seek some changes and some improvements from council. So I think we've gone through the process. It's gone through, and I think we've heard everyone, including a follow-up from Tammy this evening. And of course, this item has wide-ranging support as illustrated through the correspondence that's on this evening's agenda. So with all of that being said, I would move that we approve the second reading of the proposed zoning amendment to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw as submitted.
Is there a second? Councillor Wilson, seconds that. Is there any further discussion on this topic? Being none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried.
Good.
We have done first and second reading and it's passed.
No, congratulations. That was a lot of work.
So I will note, I think there's a notification period before the change technically takes effect. But we don't expect any issues with that. I just wanted to know in case anybody was wondering.
Hey, thank you very much, councillors. Good work.
And community.
And
Yes,
the
thank you.
community, thank you for your patience and your input, your involvement. It's been a pleasure working with you. Now, 8.2, 8.2, I have to get back on my agenda. And that is my item. And this is regarding our borrowing, our temporary borrowing resolution. We've heard back from the province and they have okayed us for, they're pleased with the progress we've made on our audits. And they are now open to allowing us to have temporary borrowing. So do you have anything else to add to that?
I'll just add, the province did supply the resolutions that we're using tonight. So these are the new format and for anybody watching, the first of the two concerns various projects over the last 3 years, including and culminating with the delivery of the fire truck, the new fire truck pumper for sale pumper, which is actually coming in 2 weeks' time, so that'll be exciting. I'm sure the fire department will show that off. And the renovation of this building and the public works garage, which are both intended to be wrapped up by September. So the first TBR concerns all of those projects and prior year projects. And then the next second one is just with respect to the Edgewater project. With respect to Edgewater, that 5.2 represents the town's projected contribution, offset by 9.8 million in external funding received or confirmed.
Any discussion?
Mayor, procedurally, are we required to read the whole resolution, or if you like, or would you rather just approve the resolution as presented?
Yeah, you don't have to read the
It's
entire
3 pages.
resolution. So
That's a
Eric will
que-
enter it in, but you
that's a
can just
question.
say you're moving it as provided.
It's online, it's in the package, so everyone has the opportunity.
Riveting section 66, of course, of the Municipal Government Act. Mayor, I would move that the first boring resolution in the amount of $3.6 million, as denoted in the attached Schedule A, be approved by council.
Is there a second? Counselor Carver? Is there any further discussion? Being none, I will call for the question. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you, everybody.
And Mayor, regarding the second boring resolution associated with the town's borrowing to support the Edgewater waterfront development project, I'd move the council approve the temporary boring resolution in the amount of $5,200,000 as denoted with the schedule.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Wilson. Thank you. Any further discussion? Being none, I'm calling for the question. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
I hope you
The
can hear me.
motion is carried. The motion is carried, and thank you all very much. It's this is good news for us. So hard work has gone into this, and thank our finance manager and UCAO for your work on this and other members of the finance team who worked hard to. I know these working with audits and budgets and everything all at the same time has been really a challenging time for our staff, but they did it. So thank you to everyone. Let's move on to item 8.3, Councillor Pofferman. You have a request for legal advice.
Well, I have, and it's been documented, and the reason put forward, it relates to a couple of council actions or inactions that in one form or another, I believe may create a legal liability should untoward events happen as a result of these actions or inactions. It may be that I'm wrong, but I think that it's clear enough from my personal experience and background and risk evaluation that it's worthwhile getting a legal opinion to determine whether there is a liability for the town in the event of untoward events occurring as a result of these actions or inactions.
Well, I'll just, I guess, speak to the likely cost if council wants legal opinion. So I haven't actually requested a quote on this, but just based on the number of hours involved, I do think we're probably talking like 20% of the town's legal services budget for the year at a minimum, $5,000. So just in perspective, but if council moves this, perhaps move to get the quote, and then based on that, you can proceed at your will. But yeah, I have a little bit of concern with the cost associated with the legal review wherein these conditions have, certainly the width of the streets has been the same for generations.
Any other comments? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Counselor, Kingsmill?
Could the question to the legal team simply be, should we be doing this or asking them to do it? I mean, could they not come back to us with a simple, yes, this is worth a deeper dive, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20%, whatever it comes to, Dylan? Could we not ask a preliminary question just to address Brian's concerns?
Yeah,
Or like a
certainly
simpler
can.
sort of, what do you think?
Sorry, Colin, didn't mean to step. I said we certainly can do that, but I guess there's no motion in this, so if a motion was made, maybe rather than the motion being to seek legal advice, maybe the motion should be to direct the CAO to request an opinion on the provision of legal
Right.
advice.
Yeah.
But that's up to the mover of the motion.
Kind of a
There-
two-step process.
Okay.
There is a motion at the end of my submission, which could be adapted to exactly that. So I would simply add that there is ample precedent for, which is easily understood by anybody who has been involved in this kind of tort situation. And it'd be very difficult to say that it'd be a complex issue, but in any event, I'd be only too happy to have a preliminary evaluation, if you will, of what I proposed. And the motion was to make a motion referring question of potentially. Well, I don't have to read it all out again particularly, but the issue that I mentioned is that I would therefore make a motion to refer the question of potential legal liability resulting from the council's failure to respond to the fire chief's request to remove speed bumps and the town's practice of allowing parking while not providing the provincially required 3-meter gap between cars and double yellow lines to the town's legal advisor for preliminary advice, if you want, instead of advice.
Okay. How are you, clerk, for that? Did you get that? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it to get it on the table for discussion.
Okay, Councilor Carver second the motion?
Just
Discussion?
to confirm, Brian, so the way you phrased it, but what you're talking about is what Colin and I discussed.
Yes,
I would go to the solicitor and find out what they think it would entail and
yes,
bring that back, and then that would be.
Yes.
us.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify, we had the same understanding of the motion before we get to vote.
So,
Okay.
as I understand it, the insertion of the word preliminary was intended to capture that.
Okay.
yes.
Any other discussion? Councilor Wilson?
Well, I don't know how to approach this exactly, but I'll start with the speed bumps in the fire department.
Yeah.
There seems to be a misapprehension somewhere along the line that because somebody asked us to do something, we were obliged to do it. And the fact that we got some well-meaning advice and a request from the fire department, we take it on board. Maybe we discuss it, maybe we don't, maybe we do something about it, maybe we don't. There are speed bumps all over the civilized world. And there are fire departments in all those same places, and they all coexist quite happily, all over this province, all across Canada. We need to find a design mechanism, I think, that makes them a little bit more user-friendly. But we don't need to get rid of them just because somebody had told us to. Second, the legal part of it, I find interesting because I suspect that if we were to take them out, we have a lot more liability from somebody whose child got run over by a speeding car than we would be by a fire department that had, something broken on the truck because they did speed up too fast. So, item 2. Be careful when you ask a question that you have a way to solve the problem if you get an answer you don't like. So if the lawyer came back, for example, and said, no, you can't have cars up on any street where there's a double line. If it's less than 9 meters. Now what? You're gonna take all parking off Main Street?
Yeah.
Block us going to the pub? I think that would be a little bit.
On the list, so.
A little bit of, that would cause a lot more difficulty. Than any possible solution. The second piece of that is, and I argue this with Brian on the street corner, is I think having parking on Main Street where it is now is a good thing. Because it slows people down. And if it wasn't there, it would be the same as,
You like West Main
it
Street.
would be like Fulberg Road was before the speed bumps. People going just as fast as they can go. So I think on balance, having parking where it is a plus, a feature, not a bug. But I would not ask the question of a very expensive lawyer unless I was prepared to act on the answer.
Counselor,
I only wanted to know to the point about what the consequence would be. We have no streets in town wide enough to meet the definition. So it would actually be no on-street parking in the home bound. I just want to be clear.
Or Lunenburg, or Shelburne.
Lunenburg streets are one way, so that is the solution, the only solution you could have to continue to have on-street parking. You make all the streets one way, put a grid together, like Lunenburg.
Councilor Kaufman?
With respect, that's not so. There are a number of areas in town where there is, not 9 meters, 3 meters gap between parked cars and centre line. The other thing is, this isn't an issue of convenience or what we'd rather have. It's about what the legal interpretation would be. They don't care about how convenient it is for us from a parking point of view. It's an unrelated matter. The matter is, if there's a direct correlation between what's happening and an event, that is something that ends up in court and is decided not on what is common practice, but what is the facts of the situation. It's quite simple.
Councilor Cooley?
Well, this is a good example about like unintended consequences. About, I think Councillor Wilson's point, ask a question when you don't really understand what the ramifications of receiving the answer is. I think, which would give me, pause before I would go invest money to try to ascertain an answer that, doesn't, there are many, many issues that we deal with because we live in one of the half dozen oldest towns in the nation. And we have streets that are, some of the streets that we live in are the oldest streets in the country here. And the cartway and the pathway that leads between Lunenburg and Mahone Bay is one of the first 50 roads in the nation. So there are very unique and unusual realities when you live in a very old town, and the way it's designed and evolved. I think the second matter is that we as a council have been, I think this is our 5th or 6th meeting in the last 3 months where we've dealt in some tangential way to the issue around the speed humps. We carved out, if I recall, last month, over an hour in the strategy and policy meeting, specifically dedicated to talk about speed bumps, specifically dedicated to talk about off-street parking. And we all know that there are pros and cons, and there are benefits and there are problems with all of these things. But there's only so much time the council can commit to an issue. And at some point, we need to come together with some level of consensus on these topics, on which things we're moving forward with, and which things are duly noted and will be addressed at a later date, or may not be addressed because we can't find consensus around the table. And I think council has tried on both of these items, parking and speed bumps, to try to find some consensus and find a way forward together. So it eludes me why this matter continues to reoccur on council after council after council meeting. Now we're going to outsource it to a lawyer on a fee-for-service basis to tell us that we have to do something that we just talked about a month ago. So I would love to see the speed bumps removed. And I think there's a general consensus that in a perfect world, we'd like that to happen. If, as long as we had a remedy to ensure that the traffic calming that the entire town was screaming for 3 years ago. Where did these traffic humps and bumps come from? Why did the council of the day put them in? Well, it wasn't so that everyone would complain about it 3 years later. It was because people had a concern, they came to council and they pleaded with us to do something about speeding traffic and to try to deal with public safety. So we had studies, we had engineering reports, we engaged CDCL, and they came with a long-term plan, and we implemented it. Not entirely, but we implemented it at significant taxpayer cost. It's not perfect, and it's not, and it's even a problem for certain people, maybe even including the fire department. But for everyone in the room and everyone who was at the meeting at the Legion 3.5 years ago, there was 200 people at the Legion, and there was consensus at the time. We needed to do something to slow the traffic down. And that was one of the solutions, was the speed bump. Another solution was the stop signs. Another solution was the rumble strip. Another solution was the crosswalks, the elevated crosswalks, things that are happening still and things that have already occurred. So like, I'm pretty comfortable with where things are right now. I mean, we seek to do better. If the provincial legislation occurs that allows us to provide traffic tickets with the cameras, so yeah, all for it. But as I understand it, that's still a year away. I was under the understanding that we were going to wait patiently for the provincial legislation to work its way through the legislature. And then upon the completion of that process, we were going to avail of the tools that the provincial government was going to bestow on us, and then we would take action. In fact, we even deferred $160,000 paving project on Fobo Road, with the understanding that we would be able to resolve some of the speed hump issue a year from now when we inevitably get to that paving. So I do think that the motion is well intended, and I do think, Brian, your view that there are people in the community that would like to see the speed bumps removed is on point. I just think we're premature, and I thought we were all of the same opinion that we were going to wait until the provincial legislation was put in place. So I would prefer to wait patiently and keep our powder dry, and not ask a question that we're not prepared to get the answer for.
Okay, Sale, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was only gonna reiterate that other than Main Street in a couple of sections, we have no streets with a paved surface of 30 feet. We do not have any streets wide enough to support off-street parking. Now that Joe's made his eloquent comments, I just wanted to add to that. We did do before and after speed monitoring on the streets where speed humps and speed bumps were installed. And the resulting reduction in speed was as desired. We got the speed down as desired by more than 10 kilometers an hour, the average speed. And that was the intention. So I just wanted to point out they were successful for the purpose for which they were intended.
And I've had requests from people to have speed bumps
Yeah.
on their roads, and I've heard people who have, especially parents of young children, who have been very grateful for speed bumps on their roads. Not to say that I've heard the opposite too, Council Copeland, people who would like them removed as well, but there are a fair number of people who do appreciate the speed bumps. Council Carver.
Yes, focusing on the speed bumps and the speed humps. We did receive information from the fire department that it's actually the speed bumps, like the ones on Fobo, that are problematic for their trucks. And that the speed humps, like the ones on Kinburn, are fine. So, and in that regard, I thought that we had the discussion that we might replace the speed bumps with speed humps or cushions.
Yeah, I'm the one who messed it up. Those were cushions, the other one are humps. Bumps are for parking lots, and
Okay. I totally messed it up.
So the one, but I started it, the one that is gonna be replaced is the one in the section below Pleasant Street, because that area is receiving some paving treatment, not the full thing we talked about, but a smaller
Yeah.
amount of work. And so I know Jonathan is working on the new specs and really hoping that one will be a showcase of how they would look, so that will be across the road rather than the cushions. But the remainder of the cushions council did defer that along with the paving. So the intention will be to correct those at the same time, or remove them in the event that we feel speed radar is an appropriate and available alternative.
Councillor Poplar?
Well, okay, a couple of things. If the fire department wants to revise its request to qualify it along those terms, good, that's great. They haven't. But we have it on writing that is their concern. As to all the other elements, yes, there are alternatives to speed bumps, and we mentioned them before. They exist now, they're even better than they were before. We have flashing signs, we have all sorts of different things. But none of that is what I'm talking about. Everything we've talked about tonight has got nothing to do with potential legal liability if something goes wrong. So we can wish and hope and desire and think it's wonderful that all these cars slow down traffic when they're parked at the side of the road and what have you, and so on and so forth. But if somebody wants to take you to court because they went over the yellow line and they hit something, or somebody believes their house burnt to the ground because the fire department couldn't get there soon enough because speed bumps, blah, 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 that's a court issue. It's got nothing to do with what we think as the council is a progressive route forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Feeney?
Just a very final point. We had a lot of public consultation around just changing the parking on Main Street to 2 hours, 2-hour limitations. We had a thorough conversation about it. I think it was well litigated. And can you imagine the conversation if we had to eliminate parking on Main Street entirely? Or turn Main Street into a one-way between the Monument and Lunenburg? So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the streets are as wide as they are. They're not gonna change. I doubt they will. And I don't see any way to get around that basic fact that between Mahone Bay and Lunenburg, the streets are narrow. And we just have to make it work the best we can. Unless we want to start expropriating front lawns to push back the width to the build of the street. And I think that is not reality either. What are we going to learn by finding out that we're not going to hit the provincial rules? Like, I think we all know we're not going to hit it.
Okay, any further discussion?
Simply that the same problem exists throughout most of Europe. They've dealt with it. They have our street parking to compensate for it, and we don't as yet.
They park on the sidewalk in Europe.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Is that right?
It's all problem solved. Good night.
Okay, are we ready for the question?
Could we have a recorded vote on this, please?
Yes. Word vote, clerk?
And recorded votes was in alphabetical order.
In alphabetical order. A, B, C, D.
Last thing.
Carver might be first.
Carver or,
So the motion is,
The one that you presented.
okay, fine.
yes, and it was seconded by Councillor Carver. So, clerk, do you do that?
Usually you get the.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like running an alphabet with my body on it.
David always writes. the
Okay.
names down, so if you want to take this-
Okay,
Was it last name, surnames?
Yeah, Councillor Carver.
okay, so it's Carver,
Beanie.
Feeney.
Kingswell.
Kingsmill,
Offerman.
Lomas Croft.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'd go last, would I go last?
No, you can go in order.
Okay, okay, and then there's Palfreyman. Twano,
And we missed the deputy mayor, who's.
No.
No, Kingsmill.
Okay.
Oh, you said me.
4, 5, 6, I have 6, Wilson,
Good night.
Wilson, okay. Councillor Carver,
My vote is no.
Councillor Feeney,
I'm in.
Counselor Kingsmill,
Yeah, I'm a no.
Lonis Croft, no. Paul Freeman,
Yes.
okay, Twana? No. Wilson,
No,
no. The noes are, if the motion is defeated.
Yeah.
and just a reminder that having, that motion having failed, this topic cannot be raised again.
Yes,
Unless and until there's new evidence provided.
yes. Yes, do note it.
So just an example of new information would be when the province does rule
Yeah.
on the applicability of photo radar.
Let's hope it's sooner rather than later.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you, our gallery guests who are leaving. We enjoyed it. Come back again.
Helga's sticking it out. Right to
Okay.
the bitter end.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, we've got one fan here. Anyway, thank you all. We are now 8.4, the application for summer theater grant, Counselor Carver.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's come to my attention, via the mayor, actually. Understand that the South Shore Summer Theatre did submit an application for an application for funding. I can't remember if it might have been for 2,000. In March and submitted it before the deadline, and somehow that application did not appear on the list that council reviewed for approval during the budget process. And this group was awarded $1,000 last year. So we have that precedent, and we also know that group has done phenomenal work with young people in the town, many young people from the town, and now it's drawing young people to the theater from farther away, including young people from Liverpool coming to have access to this theater experience. So I would like to move that, I suppose it's not retroactively, but that we approve a grant of $1,000 to the South Shore Summer Theatre Group.
Is there a seconder?
Yes.
Seconded by Councilor Polkman. Yes, Tia.
Two things. First off, I just wanted to apologize because as Councilor Carver said, this came in and somehow didn't get included in the package, wasn't included in the summary. I didn't review it when recommending what the grant allocations would be. And you know, this is the sort of thing that would typically receive funding again. I also just wanted to add there was only 1,000, but 1,000 unallocated grant funds in the budget, so just for context.
Yes, and had Councilor Feeney and I not been standing outside the Home Bay Center discussing a meeting on Tuesday night that we were leaving, we wouldn't have bumped into
Oh, yeah,
Ms.
that's right.
Southcott.
Yeah, that's right. So,
That's very fortuitous, actually. Would they have received a letter from the town saying, I'm sorry, we thank you for your application, I'm sorry, we're not. Oh, no, they wouldn't have, because the application was.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think they even would have, yeah.
But do people who don't
They
receive?
do. I don't know if they've come out yet though, but they will if they have.
Okay.
Yeah, it is something that is done.
After the budget passes.
Yeah, first they let the people who got the grants know, but I do think they also let the people who didn't. But you're right, we wouldn't have let, I mean,
Yeah,
no one had this record that this had been.
So it was entirely fortuitous. that that
Yeah.
Information came forward.
Mayor, I second Councilor Carver's motion. Oh, sorry, Brian, maybe you've already.
Oh, yes, Brian.
Yeah, good.
Any more discussion? Calling for the question, all those in favor signify aye.
I,
Oh, thank you.
All through.
Opposed,
So,
the motion is carried, thank you, everybody. And that voice, you should have your dog sitting in the chair for you this evening,
she would love to be there.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, that's the end of council items, and we're moving on to committee reports. We have the 9.1, the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Report. We have 9.2, South Shore Open Doors Association Monthly Report. We have the Climate and Environment Committee there a motion in there for us? No?
I didn't
Oh
see.
my gosh, really?
I think,
Okay, 9.4 Heritage Advisory Committee. Any motion there? There is, okay, so why don't we skip over that one for a minute? 9.5 Asset Management Committee. Was there a motion in that one? No. So,
I guess there wasn't there something in the last,
Business heritage.
I had a question about it.
do you have a
Well, you certainly
question?
can ask questions, but there were no motions.
Okay, so are you doing Heritage Advisory Committee now or?
No, we're gonna say well, would you like to go to the Heritage first and then accept the others?
Sure.
Do you want to speak to the
Heritage.
Heritage? Okay, Councillor
Okay.
Phoebe, did you want?
Just, Mayor, I noticed there are, two motions from the, happy to move them along if you don't mind. That, move the council direct staff to update the heritage grant policy to allow for the heritage property owners to apply for the grant every second year instead of, the existing, the current 5-year, duration. And that will align the program with the province's grant program.
Is there a second for that motion? Councillor Toronto? Okay, any discussion? Oh, CAO,
I doubt it'll provoke a rush of applicants because we usually haven't fully utilized the grant amount, but we can keep an eye on that, and if necessary, council may want to increase the budget for the grant amount to allow for one additional grant if this does, increase the number of grant
can
applications.
heritage churches
Uh,
apply
I
for
mean, no.
grants?
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
policy doesn't make any distinction.
I think it does, actually. I thought.
The
that-
provincial one does.
I thought that the town's grant application precluded the churches.
The grants organizations policy does, but the heritage grants policy doesn't.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's the case. So yeah, I
Okay.
didn't know that. Yeah, okay. Good to know.
Okay, that's
That's
good
good
to
to
know for
Be
me
a run
too.
for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? Being none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, those nays, yes. The motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Your second motion, Councillor Feeny. Councillor Paulson?
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
The motion is that, the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend the council begin at the process of registering the property of 430 Main Street as a municipal heritage property and direct staff to schedule a hearing.
Is there a second for that motion? Councillor Toronto. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Carver.
This morning I sent some comments to the deputy mayor, who's the chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And I can't remember who else I copied on that. But I just had some questions, so
Yes.
the text of the statement of significance.
Oh, okay. Should we go
I'm
into
sorry, I
that?
can't remember who I copied on that.
You can just copy me, I know I was on it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just reluctant to see the statement of significance that was provided with the recommendation here stands the official statement of significance, because I think it's a little bit off in a couple of ways.
Okay.
Now, is it possible to start the registration process without having the final version of the statement of significance in place?
See it?
It is, so I guess the question about the Heritage Committee's role predominantly, because this is to schedule a hearing. So in order to advertise that hearing, we'll need the statement of significance.
Yeah.
Which means that between now and the advertisement of the hearing, there could be some revision, but that revision wouldn't go back to the Heritage Committee. So the question here would be, should the Heritage Committee vet the revision, or is council comfortable with making a revision post-approval, which would just then be the staff making a revision? So if you wanted to go back to the committee, then you'd have to actually, wait a month.
Refer
Refer it back to the committee.
before.
But otherwise, we can just approve this and then tweak the statement of significance before next week, before advertising the hearing, so like that would be fine too. It just wouldn't go back to the committee.
Just for the information, because I've written the statements of significance many times. Now, there's a structure and a format for them, and there are some ways in which this doesn't quite fit the prescribed structure and language. It doesn't change the actual elements of why it's worth registering, but it's the way the document is structured and the way the elements are expressed. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. It could
Would
be
Deborah
easily-
Trask approve?
I'm not gonna speak for Deborah. But, I was just wondering if the deputy mayor wants to, chime in on that.
So, I thought we had made the modification based on your last feedback, Councillor Carver. And everybody felt comfortable with it, including Deborah Trask and the clerk. But I responded to your email today by saying it's no problem if you want to send it back to the Heritage Committee. There's really no rush. It could go back, and you could even participate in that in the next meeting if you like, and we can tweak it accordingly. So that would really be no problem if we wanted to defer it to the Heritage Committee again, just to fine tune it. That's no problem.
Well, if there's no rush, I would certainly be happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To defer the motion
To
until
defer
to the meeting
or-
in July.
yeah.
When is our meeting in July, the 12th?
July.
Second meeting,
The 8th is Tuesday.
Tuesday morning, the 8th.
When is happening?
I don't have it in front of me, but
Probably
we could-
after. Right? It just is after the 8th, isn't it?
Yeah, it wouldn't go back to the second.
Second.
even August.
Would anyone like to withdraw their motions?
There was no motion made, was there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Well, I guess in light of the discussion, I would withdraw the motion.
Okay, and seconder withdraw?
And Mary, would you like a motion to defer? So this motion is being derived from the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Mhm.
So we need we need the minutes to get on the next agenda so that we can revisit this. So what item is this? This is item.
Item 9.4.
Mayor, I move that item 9.4 be re-entered into the second July council meeting agenda, along with the statement of significance when it shows when it's edited.
Before you get a seconder, if this is competitive, oh, well, I didn't really want you to have to, because if this is going back to the committee will recommend it again.
Fair enough. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. Fair enough. Fair enough. So,
Just send it back to the committee for further work.
Yeah, either by motion
Yeah.
referred back,
Oh,
or
yeah,
just
fair
don't do
enough.
anything with it and let it come
yeah, I
back.
forget that the committee will have a fresh agenda.
Yeah,
a fresh.
so you don't need to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
You can refer back to the committee, or you can just let the committee talk
Okay.
about it again. That committee doesn't require council to
I'm just
refer back.
assuming this.
so the chair should note that for when they do
Yep.
the. Okay,
Noted.
okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
Not bad.
So, the
The
heritage, is done. So would anyone like to make a motion to accept?
I have a question.
Oh, yes,
I have
yeah.
a question about the asset
Okay.
management.
Yes,
So in the asset management committee meeting minutes draft. Under the section called town-owned property assets. There's a statement that says members discussed potentially underutilized town properties. Included the old school lab property between the community sports field and the Bay Trail. Which the town classifies as surplus. And so I just have a question about when and how was that property declared surplus?
Well, I was informed long before I got here.
It was surplus
Been
at the
surplus.
beginning of my first term.
It's been-
which
It was
2006.
declared surplus,
Yeah.
it was already
It
surplus.
was already surplus at that point.
Along with the,
Really?
along with the
I
school
think it
property.
was surplus when Yogi was trying to build all those houses.
Yeah, that's why the trash is
Back in the whatever,
Yes.
early 2000.
Yeah,
It had
Yeah, we-
already been declared, formally declared surplus, all that land had been.
Yeah.
My assumption is that in the rezoning and agreement around the recreational use of the field, that even though we haven't subdivided that part, that you can take the recreational rezoning line, presume that the back remaining portion is surplus.
Yeah.
And that's what is written in the minutes here, from the field to the trail.
that's, that sounds right.
Sometime we should formally subdivide probably, but it's all our
Are
property.
you satisfied, council?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion to accept and file? 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, and 9.5?
I will.
Someone, Councillor Carver, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Councillor Wilson. Okay. Wilson, any discussion? Being none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Oh, opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. New business. No new business? Questions, comments? Are there any online questions, comments? And any from the gallery? No?
How many are online?
Get one tonight,
One?
and I think it's me.
You gotta tell Kelly's.
Actually, no.
It's not Kimmy?
She's on vacation.
I guess
I'm
keeping her.
That's true, all the staff is off, everybody's off tomorrow, is not.
Oh, of course, that makes total sense.
Okay, okay, being none, I will,
Did you ask them?
pardon?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch the asking the person in the gallery.
Yes, I did,
Okay, so-
I did ask Elvis, yes. Okay, so, I'll accept a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Wilson. And second by Councillor Quinn.
See you.
Thank you for coming.
And we're,
Bye.
and we're gonna cite the reasons why we're going into.
Yes,
closed
and we
session.
will cite the, I don't have the litigation one, but I do have 12.1 MGA 22.2E contract negotiations. And I don't know the MGA number for litigations, maybe somebody,
Oh, sorry about that, yes, I do have that. That would be F.
F. So MGA 22.2F litigation. Okay, thank you. All right. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, folks. Or folk, or.
Yeah.
Just, just.
That memo came out, Dylan.